number one, if we're using LinkedIn for our business outreach, if we're conducting business on LinkedIn and it's a viable channel, we better be downloading our data on a regular basis. Our networks, our messaging, everything that our posts, everything that we've done on LinkedIn, because at a moment's notice, without explanation, your account can get removed. I think the immediate danger right now is that LinkedIn makes the rules, LinkedIn changes the rules, and we have no control. Even good actors. This person is a good actor. Okay. I'm going to tell you.
So, all social media platforms are technically the same. They're all dictated. They're dictatorships. And you have to live by their rules that they can change at the drop of a hat. And they don't necessarily tell you all the rules until after you've been hung by them, right? So, and even then they don't.
Who reads the rules? How many notices
have
I gotten lately?
Isn't that what Meta does? Isn't that what Meta does, or Facebook, whatever the hell you want to call it?
Well, it's all that way. I mean, there's really no difference between any of them in terms of functionality and control.
We're just servants, right?
But let's go back to LinkedIn. Okay, so if we're using LinkedIn as a biz dev channel and we're entrepreneurs, we need to understand maybe what are some of the triggers or things to avoid. And I think somebody put in the message like, don't have a lot of outstanding invites. Like let's talk about the triggers that might get you, in jail. I'm thinking of some other things. And who was it? Mary, did you say that? Like LinkedIn Live is not supposed to be used for promoting LinkedIn? Yeah. That's another, they could technically.
But I do anyways.
Yeah.
And so do other people.
As does this person that got, that might have triggered it too.
Today, however, though, is going to be a little bit different. Largely just because I want to hear some testimonies from our panel about your journey, about some customer journeys, like what we discussed or what was discussed on the email. So how has your LinkedIn use strategy journey changed as you have been in business, as your business has progressed? What have you used it for? Kind of what are all the uses that you can't use it for, basically? So I'm going to kick that off. I'm going to share with you guys a little bit about my own business journey and how I got involved in LinkedIn and how I use it. And then for the panel members, I see we have Mary, Judy, Vivica. Do we have anybody else here? You guys can just kind of go as you feel. So back in 2019, I had 501 connections on LinkedIn. I had just left a position. I was VP of marketing for a small startup tech company that lost a primary account, i.e. their funding. So it was one day the owner came in and said, well, we're going to have to shut it down. We lost our primary account. So I had a decision to go get on LinkedIn, try and use it to try and find a job. Keep in mind, I've had an account for a long time, but like a lot of users had not used it at all. I have been in marketing for over 20 years. So I decided, okay, I'm going to jump on LinkedIn. Felt like I was fairly unemployable at that point, but I had owned business in the past. I actually been involved in 4 different companies. So I thought I'm going to kick this off, but I had about a 3-month runway from cash reserves. So I started posting content to LinkedIn and just randomly connecting with people. I did not really have any real strategy other than to share the information that I had gained over the years, not only about marketing, but a lot about SEO. So I'd really studied up a lot on search engine optimization. Had a good friend that was a Google insider that helped me for many years. So I started posting about SEO when I started and thought that was going to be my my landing spot. I was going to start an SEO company. As I dug into it, decided, okay, if I can make this work for myself, if I can actually form a business myself using LinkedIn, then I can potentially help other people form their business too. The first 3 months of posting, I had very little engagement to no engagement on my posts. Didn't know what I was doing, honestly. And quite honestly, I'm a graphic designer by trade. I didn't even write. So I was launching out there absolutely cold. And I hadn't been on social media really much at all. I wasn't a Facebook user. I didn't like Facebook. I wasn't on Instagram. So I was coming to social media just totally cold. Started watching. I spent between 12 to 15 hours a day, literally, on the platform for the first year. And I just sat in my office, and my family wondered where I was. They knew where I was, but I wasn't around them. So after a short time, after 3 months of being frustrated that I was getting no engagement and just connecting with random people, I started talking to specific individuals, and I decided, one of the key things, understanding SEO, LinkedIn has an SEO component to it. I need to figure out how this algorithm works that they're running so that I can get more engagement to my content. So I started talking to some people and inviting them when I did post, if they would come out and comment on it, and then I would go comment on their post as well. And I came across this term pod. So I wound up getting involved in a number of different pods, not knowing anything about them. And going that route, started getting huge engagement to my content once that started. But I was spending hours diligently working a bunch of random people and their content that I had to engage in order to get the engagement to my content. So that was very short-lived, if you would. I spent about a month doing that, realized that's a waste of time. So long story short, after about a year, I had figured out that the path to success, if you would, is to understand how to write content on LinkedIn, understand the algorithm, and then understand who you want to talk to and why, and how you can help that person solve a problem. And in solving a problem, it had to be a specific problem. It couldn't be all kinds of different problems. I had to focus in on one thing that I could help people with. And so my content evolved over time into specifically helping people with LinkedIn and how to make it successful for them based on what I was learning myself. So my niche, if you would, evolved over time, although I had 20 years of experience in marketing. So I began teaching classes. So instead of trying to find a job with LinkedIn, I started trying to find people who actually were like myself and really wanted to learn LinkedIn and use it to help grow their business, whatever that may be. So I started teaching master classes on how to use LinkedIn. I did that for about 6 months, taught a bunch of people how to use LinkedIn. Recently had one person reach out to me that they made some top 50 list of LinkedIn, whatever that is, as creators, and attributed it to taking my class and learning how to do this. But the bottom line is, as I have gone, I have also changed my target market and what I'm trying to do with the platform, with the company. The primary person that I met was Judy, who introduced me to another primary person who is my current business partner in Isaac. And so I was focusing more on the marketing aspect. How do you get yourself out there? How do you get people talking? How do you get them engaged with you in the conversation more than just nice post? Thanks for sharing. How do you get them involved on an ongoing basis and build up your tribe, so to speak? I was also helping them in messaging and communicating to specific people for specific reasons. And that's where meeting my business partner, he was more focused on that aspect of it. And so together we decided this is better together than by itself. And so we formed Abound Social. Who we go after, who we target also changed in that, and that instead of individuals, we now seek companies out, and we have a specific target for companies that we work with. And so over time, it's evolved from learning. I have to learn the platform, I have to figure out how to make it work for me, into a specific individual that I'm going to talk to. I'm going to build up my tribe around me, the people that are going to engage me on a regular basis, to now into forming a company and having a successful company that helps people do this on the platform every single day. So it has, you can see how the journey evolves. Now, the one thing that it has taken for me is my own personal investment. It does not happen overnight. LinkedIn is not a short game. LinkedIn absolutely is the long game. And what I tell everybody is you have to have a long-term focus with short-term urgency. So you really have to work the platform aggressively in talking to the right people and their strategy and your strategy and who you're going to talk to. But you have to be consistent on the platform, and you have to let your strategy evolve, if you would, as you go. So happy to answer any questions in terms of that, but I'd love to hear other people's journeys and your testimonies of how you make LinkedIn work for you. And I'm just going to pick somebody. I'm going to go, and then that person gets to pick the next person. Judy, you go.
Hey. By the way, Monty, you I don't know if you omitted this, but you had published a book with Andreas.
I did omit that.
That's how I found you.
Yes.
I think I had gotten the book, and it was the first time that I had heard about looking at LinkedIn as inbound marketing. It was a whole different approach. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to this guy. So it was using the book as the tool to get out your, sort of subject matter expertise, which is what drew me to you. So one of the things I want to make clear about LinkedIn is it is a long game, like you said, and there's sort of a web of how we meet people, and we don't know how those people will play a role later on. And I'm also partnering with, not officially in a business, but we are partnering on clients together with Susan, who I met in this group. So, it is really, but it starts with a relationship. It starts with, some curiosity, right? I mean, there's some curiosity here that you reach out to one another. But I think in my journey, I was trained in marketing, direct mail in advertising agencies, which is a lot about target marketing. And as I evolved, I became a social media analyst when I started my own business, and I was analyzing metrics. And then some smart coach told me, you probably could charge more and do better if you specialized. And I always had an affinity for LinkedIn. I ran LinkedIn accounts when I was at Chamber of Commerce and all this other stuff and a couple of associations. It was like, oh, okay, LinkedIn's pretty cool and I like it. And since I said, I'm just going to do LinkedIn and make that my business, that's when everything took off. And so, so LinkedIn is kind of it's like a catalyst in a way. Whatever your business is, if you look at, kind of understanding who you're targeting and what you're offering, the more specialized as an entrepreneur you are, because people resist specialization. It's like, oh, I don't want to exclude people. But I think the more special you are, the more specialized you are, the easier it is for people that need what you offer to have it in their head. Oh, I get that. So I know Monty, when I think of content and specifically company pages, it's like, he's the man. He understands how to make this work. So you see, you've kind of, but you didn't necessarily have to say I'm the content company page man. It's in your actions and how you do it. So so thank you, and I'm glad that we've come to this group, and I've had conversations with Vivica and with Mary and a couple other people here. And I just think this is where it all starts. This is the incubator right here.
It is. And Ginny, I'd like to ask you, how long do you feel like it took you to before in using LinkedIn to where you really felt confident that you would be able to use it to start a business?
It took me, I think it was a gradual journey, and it was, I got a little more comfortable each time. I got afraid sometimes of what to say, but I learned two things. There's two important things about LinkedIn. There's the edit and the delete. And I can't tell you how many times I've put something out there and I'm in my car and I'm like, oh shit, I got to take that down. I got to take that down because I'm a New Yorker, I say things, I don't, whatever. But I think it's being authentic and being honest. So I don't know how many years. I do know that when I was at the Chamber of Commerce, I got really immersed in it, and they wanted me to teach the members how to use it. So that's when I became, I'm really curious about this thing. And then when I started on my own, it was like, well, I want to reach business people, and I'm not a Facebook fan. So where do I reach them? LinkedIn, right?
Yeah.
And then it was just getting better and better, and gravitating towards subject matter experts like yourself, like other people that are trainers and experts on LinkedIn. And then just putting a stake in the ground. And here we are.
Fantastic. Now I want to make sure that you pitch your book real quick. And
Oh my
drop a
gosh,
link in the
the book.
chat. Drop a link in the chat for everybody to go buy it.
There it is. I actually have a book. I don't know where I put it. I only have one copy because the paper shortage has a issue with my author copies. But anyway, I'll put a link in there. I published a book like Monty, and Monty and I had that conversation. And he encouraged me. He says, Judy, just do a book. That was 2-3 years ago, 2019.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can't do that. So anyway,
Very
all
exciting.
right, I'll put a link there if you guys are interested. It's $10. $10, probably the best $10 you could spend.
Couple cups of coffee.
Exactly. And by the way, I need reviews. Amazon has a deal where you get 20 reviews in the first 60 days, and it helps, tickle the algorithm. So if anyone has it or wants to download a free chapter and put a review, okay, that's me done.
Fantastic, Judy. You get to pick next up.
Are there any hand raisers, or am I just picking random people?
Hey, Judy, can I ask you a quick question before you pick somebody?
Yeah, who said that? Kareem? Yes.
Kareem, also, for your book on Amazon, was that the self-published through the system where you get the royalties and things of that nature?
I worked with a publisher called Unstoppable CEO Press, and so they did it for me. But yes, I get royalties on the book, and I also get I have to buy the book for myself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's KDP. There's a whole series of things with it. But I believe it's print on demand as well. So there's no print run. These days I've published before with a publisher, and I only got royalties on the book, very little. And so in today's world, you don't necessarily need a publisher. I chose Unstoppable CEO Press because they had a turnkey that could just get this thing done. And so that's, Are you thinking of a book, Kareem?
So I have one that's done. I need to fix it up anyway, regardless. But if I want to self-publish, I kind of want to know what's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, if you search KDP, that's Kindle Direct Publishing.
Okay.
It'll give you more than you ever wanted to know, and that's why I outsourced it, because my head was going to explode. I don't want to be an expert in that. I just want to have a book.
Yeah.
By the way,
Okay.
can I make a comment?
All right, Judy. All right, guys, let's I want to keep us on track.
I'm going to pick Mary. Mary, please, please be the next person, Santa baby.
Hold on
Okay.
your question though, okay? So we'll come back to it.
Okay.
Well, you'll come back to me?
Yes.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. So my journey on LinkedIn started as a job seeker. I was losing my job, and I was 50, and I was like, how the heck am I going to find a job? So my company, the school I worked for, sent me to an outplacement service. And I put up the worst profile in history. So by learning, right, it was a picture of me on a date. I liked what I was wearing. I cut the guy out. I put that photo up. I put my title, executive assistant. I literally I learned. Now I know how crappy it was, but I thought I was going to go get a job. And then the turn of events for me was my mom was sick and I couldn't get a job. I needed to be there for her. So I started my business not knowing anything. I have no background in marketing, my degrees in organizational leadership, so I do understand people, but I don't have that background in copywriting, graphic design, or marketing, or sales, or anything. What I did have was the desire not to work somewhere where I couldn't take time off to take care of my mom. So that was my driving force. And so I immersed myself in LinkedIn training, like with TR Garland, like back in the day. I've been doing my business very part-time until last year when I lost another job, my cushy job in San Diego, and I decided to go all in. It is a long game. I do agree with everything that everyone is saying. You need to niche. I serve women entrepreneurs. That's my gold mine. I love working one-on-one, although like Monty, right? You grow. So you pivot and scale. And in order to scale my business, we're launching an academy so I can serve more people. But my niche is actually taking you from boring to badass on LinkedIn. So I am not the sales navigator pro. There are people here that niche down even further on LinkedIn. And for me, I'm the person who optimizes the heck out of your profile, and I make you become a badass. You are a rock star. You are not boring. The byproduct is people in that I've worked with. They always say, thank you for telling me I can use my voice. Actually, the statement was, thank you for giving me permission to be myself. So I think that's really powerful. There was a question here that said, okay, do you guys think your business is successful because you teach LinkedIn? Well, that's because that's the people that we're looking for on LinkedIn. But I truly, truly believe that almost anyone that has a business can be successful on LinkedIn if they niche down, if they have a great profile that tells people what they do, because you only have 6 seconds. If I can't tell what you do by your LinkedIn profile, I'm probably not going to connect with you. I'm probably not going to accept that message request. So there are all those different components. It's taken me a while to get to where I'm at because I've been doing it part-time. I am working on content that's more engaging. I can tell you that personal content, right, Monty? Right, everyone? You write, I did some stupid post about my photo shoot in San Diego and how I went and spoke. I got my hair done. Why not have a photo shoot? And that thing like blew up. And that's okay. So what I see happening is people like, oh, but that personal post has nothing to do with my business. They're not going to hire me. They're not going to have a conversation. And the thing is that they're getting to know you. And at the end of the day, it's human to human, H to H. There's a person behind every profile. So when you're doing the personal post, it's allowing people to see you as the human that you are. And that makes you more relatable. And people do business with people that they know, like, and trust. Simple. It sounds really simple and old school because it is, but it still works. And then my other thing on LinkedIn is it's the individual relationships. I have relationships with Judy and Viveka and Monty and Isaac. Like I can call them if I have a question. Viveka and we have monthly calls now just to check in and just kind of like talk our biz. Isaac's been on my show and in a couple summits that I've done. Monty will be in one in the future. So at the end of the day, it's not about having 30,000 followers. Numbers are great. That's for Instagram. I think it's really about the relationships that you establish on LinkedIn, and that takes a little bit of time.
Yes, it does. How long did it take you to build up your business?
Well, I'm not a great example because I was doing it part-time by taking care of my mom or work.
I think it's great. I think it's great for people to hear it from a part-time basis too.
Yeah. Okay. So from the part-time aspect, it's been 6 years. So I've been in business full-time, concentrated for 1 year. All of the first 3 years, I was taking care of my mom. And I mean that with a lot of love in my heart. Like I wouldn't change that for anything. I was there for her while she was sick. And then I got a job, but I kept my business. And I told my boss, I have a business, I'm building it. Because I got recruited by a friend.
Awesome.
it was a cushy job with a nice paycheck, so I couldn't say no to it, but I kept building my business. For me, doing live shows is how I built my brand.
Well, there's
So
nothing wrong
I
with
have a
doing it
live
from a
show coming
part-time.
up. Huh?
I was saying there's nothing wrong with doing it from a part-time basis, and I think it gives everybody good insight. I mean, there's so many different ways in which you can approach LinkedIn and be successful from it.
Yeah.
And so, awesome. Thank you, Mary. I think the only panel member we have left is Viveka. So, Viveka, I'm going to let you go, and then we'll go into questions for everybody. I think we'll just do an open forum today.
All right, mine is kind of an odd story, but I am a recovering lawyer, and about 10 years ago, after having done some of the marketing and built a website together with a team for my law firm, I took on more and more of the marketing, fell in love with that, sort of the psychology of communicating. How do we connect with people we haven't even had a chance to meet face to face? And so that's kind of where I started getting interested in marketing and sort of the psychology of communications and all that. And when the firm closed its doors, I jumped off, took a few months to think about it, and decided I was going to start my own marketing agency. Had absolutely no clue what I was doing. So that's where I started. But so I kind of, I was all over the place initially. And then after a few years, this was 10 years back, I started niching down pretty significantly with lawyers and law firms. It just made sense. That was my background. I knew some of the regulatory sensitivities that they had to be aware of. And so I started niching down. Again, I was on Facebook, I was on Twitter, Instagram, all over the place. And it wasn't until about 4 years ago that I started sort of niching down even further with just LinkedIn. It made sense. It's where my audience is. It's where my clients are, for the most part, whether it's B2B or B2C or H to H. And I also got early access to LinkedIn Live. So I jumped on that. Again, had no clue what I was doing, but go. So I did. And I think that's where I sort of started connecting. And I think people had that sort of three-dimensional touch point. You were moving, you were introducing yourself, talking about areas, in my case, for attorneys that were interesting to them. So that's how I sort of dove in deeper a few years ago with LinkedIn. And so I'm the super niche person here. I focus on LinkedIn, but then beyond that, I also focus on working primarily with attorneys and law firms and some public agencies, special districts as well, which have some regulatory sensitivities too. So my thing, just like Mary, just to kind of piggyback on what you were saying, Mary, is that I have kind of an uphill battle, but I tend to attract the attorneys that are a little bit more entrepreneurial, visionaries, they're open-minded, receptive. I am really giving them also permission to use their voice, but specifically to be more personal. And I mean, it doesn't take long for them to understand when they dare show a little bit more personality. Mind you, we're talking about attorneys. We're raised to have a certain formality and meeting those expectations. But when they back off a bit and they blend in some of the personality, those posts, that outreach absolutely blows up. Now, when they see that, they get it. But I mean, that personality, a personal point or personability, that has to tie into what they do, or there's some passion of how they serve in their legal arena. And so the trick for me, a lot of times when I'm managing their accounts, is how do you find the sort of the twist into what you do? And it can be something as ridiculous as, and we've seen the polls, briefs or boxers, favorite ice cream flavor. I'm so done with those polls. But as a matter of fact, there's a way you can kind of turn it into a story of value or inspiration or, learning to your audience. So you have to be really creative there when you're taking something that's as sexy as law and putting it into a personal, soundbite that's actually going to capture attention in this scrolling society that we live in. So that's kind of my backstory. And I just open up LinkedIn right now, and I have the new Sales Navigator homepage, and I'm hoping they're going to do it a lot less clunky and that it starts integrating better with the regular LinkedIn. So
we need a new training on the Sales Navigator stuff.
Yeah, I need to refresh on that too. So that's my backstory. That's kind of what I do. I'm sort of the super niched person here, recovering lawyer person.
That's excellent. I want to piggyback on the question that was asked. our panelists are typically, they have their businesses around LinkedIn. They help people with LinkedIn. It's what we do. It doesn't mean that you have to be a quote unquote LinkedIn expert in your business or around LinkedIn for it to be successful on a panel. I know many of the people that are on this call and that have been on the calls have nothing to do with LinkedIn other than to use it to get business. Honestly, the whole reason why we're in the LinkedIn space and have started our business in helping people, we don't help other people start LinkedIn businesses. We help people in their niche, in their businesses, grow and be successful on the platform. So if you are on this call and you do business through relationships, we call it B2B, so to speak, LinkedIn is the place for you. And there is no better place for it. You will not get that on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even your own website. Okay, so for our clients, we'll push more direct leads from LinkedIn to your website than any other social media platform if you're in the B2B space, because it's relationship driven. So one of the things that we have all communicated through our journeys is that we do focus on relationships. And what Vivica was calling out is so very important. And we all actually do this. We're very niched and focused in who we want to talk about, or I'm sorry, who we want to talk to. And if you go to all of our profiles, we're not LinkedIn quote unquote influencers. Okay, we're not that LinkedIn designates by itself, by the way. It's not a bunch of self-designated influencers. You have to have 1 million followers or something like that for LinkedIn to designate you an influencer. It is that we are very focused in who we serve and who we want to speak to. So if you want to be successful on the platform, you can take that model and make it your own. Understand who you need to speak with and seek out those people individually. You don't have to worry about getting 1 million views on your posts or even 5,000, right? Because the number one best way to be successful is talk to the right people. And so if you haven't figured that out, I would start there. So let's open it up. We've got about 15, 20 minutes left. If any of you have any questions, chime in. Let's go.
May I just add one thing?
Yes.
I work with several clients that are not LinkedIn people. They have different businesses. They sell professional services to B2B, high ticket, high trust. And it's through content that we're building the credibility, and they are getting business. I've had twice it happened within the past week, people reaching out because of content or something they saw, and they're using LinkedIn as a way to reach out. So I think that, when you are demonstrating your expertise, which you can be a publisher on LinkedIn, it's a great channel. And it's not about having huge networks. It's about having the right network.
That's right.
Right. And also just to follow up on what you were saying, Monty, I mean, we have Stephen, what's his name? Stephen, who calls himself a weatherologist. We have a plumber on LinkedIn, and you guys have seen those posts. I mean, I guarantee in your feed at some point, these guys have nothing to do with LinkedIn, but they have built a business and a following that is completely unrelated because they've been personable and tied into what they do, what they have a passion of doing. It's amazing. Absolutely. So it doesn't have to be a LinkedIn business per se at all.
Ron, you had a follow-up question.
Yeah, well, no, I didn't have a question, but I had a comment for Judy and anybody else. I've had 4 books published, 3 of them traditionally, which means that the publisher gave me money in advance, set up distribution. Judy, if you want some insights in how to move thousands of books, certainly prior to the publishing date and to become an Amazon bestseller, my contact information is in the chat. I'd be more than happy to share some insights and some information from what I've learned about publishing books. So
I appreciate that, but I will say this. My objective in doing it was to use it as a business development tool, just like I use LinkedIn. It's just another way. I don't care about selling copies. I care about getting it in the hands of the right people.
Yeah.
And so,
just so you know, when you become a published author, your speaking fees can double.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah,
Well, that's
but,
good.
but
That's
again,
great
if
insight. I'll
anybody's
definitely-
interested, I just wanted to share that with you. I'd be more than happy to give
Awesome,
you that
Ron.
as a tip.
I will grab that. Thank you so
Okay.
much. Okay.
All right. So William's asking in the chat if any of us want to share about how they charge for services. You guys are more than welcome to do that if you'd like. For us, it's based on a number of people that we work with. In a company, our target is at least 3 salespeople and above in a company. So, and based around the services that we do. So it's, happy to reach out to anybody. Do you guys want to share anything about how fees are driven with service? And if not, that's okay. I know that's more of a,
I can jump in. I mean, when I work with attorneys, I charge kind of a one-time fee for setting up and making sure that their profile, much like what Mary does, is well optimized, tells a story, gives a flavor of who they are as a human being and as a professional. So we kind of weave that into their into their profile, and then from there, usually they want some hand holding of some type. So there's a management component, either, I drive or they drive, I say shotgun. I mean, there are slight variations on that, but to get them going for the first 3 to 6 months. So that's kind of how I work with attorneys typically. And it's a very organic, it's a very natural transition from working with them on their profile, because I get a chance to get to know them, they get a chance to get to know me, and we see if it's a good fit. Then they're comfortable, the sort of unknown has been taken out of the equation, and they're pretty comfortable moving on for some sort of management component. But that's typically how I work. Pretty simple.
fantastic. Judy, you have any insight you want to share on that, or?
Yeah, what I do is I use LinkedIn as the gateway drug, and I start with a profile optimization, usually a senior level, and I've been doubling my fees the past 6 months each time I do it until I get 4 no's, and so far I've been closing at a higher price. So it's like, cool, okay. And then what happens is I will work with the client on strategy, and I have a package, and that's what I'm doing with Susan. We have a 4-month program. And we just closed our largest deal, just closed it this month. So what I'd say is if you offer packages, make it easy for the buyer. Have a gateway, have something to get you in that kind of establishes the trust and see, if you can work together. And then have an option of services, package ABC. That's it. Keep it really simple, because if people don't sell by price. Because someone said, well, what does that cost? And I always use the word, here's your investment. This is what the investment is, because they have to understand that it is, like you said, it's a long game and it's an investment. So, and then if the price is an issue, then adjust the scope. That's why you have the packages. But don't be afraid to charge what you're worth.
Excellent. Would anybody like to jump in, that even if you're not on the panel, to share a story about how you established a relationship that led to a sales opportunity or a closed deal for you?
I can chip in.
Go ahead, Kareem.
So basically, to give people a background, I got on LinkedIn actually for a really completely different reason. I actually wasn't for business or anything related to that. I just wanted an outlet to write. I wanted to start writing just every day. And LinkedIn was, as far as I could see, the last platform where people were at least still sane. And so as a result, I decided to just write my thoughts on all the businesses I've done over the years. I started doing entrepreneurship like a good 10 years ago. And I did a lot of, failed ideas eventually till I stumbled into Amazon FBA. I've been having a lot of success since then. And so it's not really so much that I talk about Amazon specifically. I will pitch in about some things about that every now and then in my posts. But my sort of niche, if you want to call it that, is more talking about business basics, because that's the stuff I love the most. I love talking about the basic stuff about business that if anyone's starting out first would want to know so they could just get walking. It's just basic praxeology. It's not anything specific to any one business. Anyone could take this advice that I give and apply it to what they need and tailor it accordingly to how it makes sense for them. So that way, it doesn't matter if you are doing service, product, if you're working in flowers or working in iron, doesn't matter. You can apply it regardless. And so the posting every day sort of just built up a natural following because people just kind of enjoyed the small tidbits. It wasn't anything really, I was looking for, it just kind of happened. And so I was making the connections over time. And as the connections started to snowball, it got to the point where people were beginning to say to me, hey, I may know someone who might need some help. You're an Amazon person, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, well, this person needs something with help with this specific task. Would you possibly be able to help them with that? I'm like, sure, I can at least talk with them and see if I can help. A couple of talks didn't really go anywhere because of that. I probably couldn't help them. It was no big deal. But then recently we had one came up to me and said, I have a guy who has an invention and he's having some trouble getting some sales. Do you think maybe take a look at it and see what the problems might be? I said, sure. So I had a Zoom meeting with him. And I got a better idea of what his status was, what his issues were. And I said, yeah, I think I might be able to get you walking in the right direction. And he goes, what's your hourly? And I quoted my hourly. And I have to say, as a side note, obviously not everyone can have this advantage. But when you already have one business that's paying your bills, it's an awesome feeling when you can quote your hourly and not care if they say yes or no, because you know that you don't need to depend on it. And I think that's part of it. I'm fully convinced that gives you an air of confidence in the right way, where the customer is like, no problem, because they feel like they're worth every single cent, right? They don't feel an ounce of desperation off your voice. And that makes such a huge X factor. So like I said, I know not everyone can do that, but if you can at least get in that mentality somehow, some way, that is big, because then when you quote your hourly, you're doing it without even a shred of fear. And your customer's like, done. Like when I quoted my hourly, he's like, no problem, which means I probably should have said more. And so I did a few hours for him, got him at least in the right direction. It turns out they're going to go a different direction, but he loved my ideas and he loved where I was going with it. He just decided that really where he was at, it wasn't worth pursuing anymore for his product. That's something I can't help with. It is what it is, but it was a great start out. And if now that snowballs into something else, great. But the point is that through the natural, weird way of just organically wanting to just be part of something, it has stumbled into something else. And like I've said before, I'm an anomaly. I'm lucky. I know that not everyone has the time to do that because they have a business. They have to get into it now. The more advice I would give is at least carry yourself as if you have something else going on, because the moment people feel like you're walking with desperation, unfortunately, no one wants to hire you. And that's just a weird part of human psychology that it's very hard to fix.
Well, and I know that one important thing you're saying there too is that you were niched. And so you were the Amazon guy. So that has led into something as well. So it's an excellent point. Shireen, you've been patient. What do you got?
Well, so for me, so I think the question was about like, how have LinkedIn helped you to get clients or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been on LinkedIn for a long time, I think from the very beginning. And though I have like over 1,000 people that are connected with me, what I found, and just very recently, I moved to really sort of post primarily on LinkedIn because Facebook disabled my account, and so I realized I was like, okay, I'm not even trying to get back into that. And so it's very interesting because I do think it's a very long game. And I think it's important that you do have people that see you. Like, I think there's a lot of behind the scenes people that are not seen, that they don't want to come out of the woodworks and say, hey, but just recently I closed a client. I should say I started a relationship to help my client get stellar results, which is really what I do. I help my clients get stellar results, whether it's in their business, whether it's in their career, and going forward, it will be in their digital marketing, because I just love digital marketing. And what I got was this newbie entrepreneur started an online business and she needed help. So she reached out to somebody that she knew. She said, and the message was, I need somebody to help me with my business. And the person responded, you need to talk to Shireen. And those, which is amazing, what I find is that's just simply how it is. If you have a problem, you need to talk to Shireen. And we got on a call. I understood where she was and where she wasn't with her business and what she was trying to achieve with her business. And I suggested, kind of like to Judy's point, what I call a small package. My packages they're not low ticket at all. They are still high ticket because it is an investment in her business. And it really was for her in 30 days. I call it a 30-day cash injection intensive. let's establish your baseline for what you can do in terms of making sales. Because right now you have nothing in place, and we need to figure out your Instagram following. How do we get those transferred on to your email list? Like there's a whole process that needs to happen, and you're not following the online process, right? And when I think about that, and when I think about LinkedIn, it really is me putting out content. And my content is really business kind of directed. It's not so much, I don't know, personable. But I think I might need to shift that a little bit, but it's really straight with no chaser type of information. Like, here are some things you need to know about strategy, project management. And again, I think that there are people behind the scenes that are seeing the content. And when somebody has a call that they need, they will put a recommendation in for me.
Yeah, we call those lurkers. There's
Yes.
all kinds of people who will watch your content on an ongoing basis and never really engage with it until they actually need you.
Yes.
So it is great to focus your content around specific problems that you can solve. And I love what you had to say there. It's still 100% relationship driven, right? I mean, somebody's saying, hey, you need to speak with Shireen. That's how it happens. So we've got about 4 minutes left of this session. Really appreciate everybody's engagement. Does anybody have any questions that they want to jump in, or with some final thoughts? Any life-changing?
I guess I got a question too. Is, most of you, and I'm not, I use LinkedIn as, part of my business. I, like this other gentleman, I do have another business that, provides my income. So, but I do get, things that show up on LinkedIn and stuff like that. I like it better because there's not as many distractions. Like when somebody says, oh, I have a bonus of a Facebook group or whatever, I just kind of cringe because I don't really care. I do have Facebook group, but I hate going on Facebook, per channel, because there's just so much, stuff. But anyway, like, I guess it's Vivica, is that your name?
Vivica?
Yes.
And all of you, now you say about, the content that you put up there. I mean, is it just you're posting, or what are you looking for basically when you're trying to post? Engagement, or what is it? When somebody engages, you just strike up a conversation, or what are you trying to get out of there? Because I've heard that, just posting, content on LinkedIn doesn't really do anything. So.
Great question, John.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, posting in a vacuum does not work. I mean, you're not going to check the box and put content out there. The very first thing I do is I go into existing threads and conversations of groups and attorneys that I'm following. I see what they're saying, how they're saying it, what their pain points are, their struggles. I take that and I use that as part of my content. So I'm very much into, even though I jumped in here, I'm very much into listening. Okay, Monty, go.
No. Well, what I mean is, okay, you go in groups, you don't necessarily post in that group, but you may take the language or the things they're talking about and post it outside, or what?
Yeah, not officially LinkedIn groups, but I look at existing threads of communications among attorneys, like, a certain type of attorney, even to be super, super niched, that I know I sort of admire, and that, there are receptive and sort of visionaries in their own right, really. And so I jump into a comment thread, and what people are missing are, I mean, a lot of the gold is in the comments. So go to some of the comment threads and see where there is a really relevant, valuable conversation, listen, and then jump in and add to it before you start posting your content, just out there without a plan. So that's how I shape my plan.
Okay.
What I would add to that, John, and for everybody else too, is that think of the thing that you could get up in front of a crowd of people and talk about for an hour without a single page of notes.
Oh, the 10X experiment.
That is the things that you want to talk about on LinkedIn, right? It's what, like Kareem said, what are you an expert in? What are you most focused on? And make that a single flag in the ground, right? I mean, that this is going to be who I am. I am going to be this on LinkedIn. I want to be known as the authority, the expert in whatever that niche is. And honestly, the more narrow it can be, the better. Because most people on LinkedIn, because we are all in a relationship business, right? It's all about relationships. If you had 10 people dropped into your plate as new clients today, you may not even be able to handle it. So you're looking for those individual relationships that will be meaningful, that will lead to either new clients, new sales of some kind. So focus on one, not a million. Focus on few, right, that you can actually talk to. And then you can get into, like what Viveka's saying, you can find specific groups, you can find specific ways in which you can get into those discussions and find out what people are actually wanting to hear. So then you can modify your expertise geared directly towards responding to that specific type of content. And you'll pick up more of a following much more quickly than just being kind of random and willy-nilly out on the platform. So, okay, time for one more question because we're past the hour. We got to make it a quick one. Shireen, go.
Okay, so I just love that point where you say just focus on one thing. Now it's very interesting, right? So I love strategy. I love, talking about business problem, project management. But one of my, like I said, my biggest love is digital marketing. And my focus is really get out there and start talking about digital marketing. Do you think that would detract from all the other things that I do if I start having that conversation?
I think you need to focus, and what I recommend to everybody is the more narrow you can get. Digital marketing is a very broad topic.
It is, that's correct.
So you need to focus on a very specific thing. So if you noticed, all of our panelists, when we talked about LinkedIn, is focused on LinkedIn. I mean, we do
Right.
very specific things with LinkedIn for very specific people. So if there's one particular component of digital marketing that you want to focus on, do that. If it's just, I give this analogy, I used to give this analogy with my class. If you were walking through, if you decided to walk through the desert on your own, no research, no nothing, you're going to make it like 2 hours. And you're going to be on your hands and knees crawling through the desert by that time. If I walk up to you riding a camel and I look down at you, you're going to look at me and say, and what's your primary need?
Oh, at that water.
You need water. You need water, you're going to die right away, right? It's
Right.
one primary thing. Now I can tell you, say, get up on my camel. I can hand you some sunscreen. I can hand you some lip balm. You're not going to care about any of that unless you have water.
Mhm.
So focus on the one primary thing that you can help people with, or a problem that you can solve for people,
Mhm.
and then speak to that.